Welcome to another episode of The Jazz Scene, giving you an in-depth look at the music and stories of the music community here in Columbus. The Jazz Scene is presented by the Jazz Arts Group, America's oldest nonprofit organization dedicated to advancing the art of jazz through performance and education. My name is Zach Compston, Director of Education and Community Engagement here at Jazz Arts Group, and a professional musician living here in Columbus. So today on the Jazz Scene, we're joined by drummer extraordinaire, jazz drummer extraordinaire, educator, band leader, composer Matt Wilson. Matt, thanks for joining us.
Geesh. Thank you, Zach. Thanks for those nice endearing terms. But thank you. It's always a pleasure to be in Columbus, and it's always great to hang out with you. You're a great cat. You're special with the music, not only as a player, but as an advocate for the music, which is what we definitely need more of. So from the bottom of my heart, I thank everybody at JAG, and then all the work that you guys do, especially you and bringing us here. So we appreciate it.
Oh, thanks so much. And so you guys are here with your quartet in Columbus for what feels like you guys have been doing like a week's worth of stuff. It's been 3 days.
I know.
It's like get a ton of stuff done. Doing some educational outreach leading to these performances tonight at Notes here in Columbus at a club that's relatively new, really cool spot. And we've done 2-3 schools in a sort of public offstage at our Jazz Academy space. And you guys, the thing that I've noticed right off the bat is you guys are so loving with the music. And you talk about community, and you talk about sort of embracing where you are, embracing the moment, embracing the song. That probably didn't just come naturally, did it for you? Or this sense of community that you have with your band, and then you take around all over the world. You were just in Chile.
Yeah.
Where did that come from for you, Matt?
Well, you get fed sources a lot of different ways. My parents were very community oriented. My mother was involved in all kinds of things, and this women's club and president of this and all that kind of thing. So I was always very aware of what it's like to be how a group of people can move things, and a band is really that. But often in the arts or just in any organization, there are people like different roles. Some people love doing this part. Some people come up with ideas but need people to complete. That's kind of me. I'm a sort of a brainstormer person, but I really need people around me to help me implement things, and get things through. Otherwise, my brother and I call it scheming, just sit around and scheme about things. And I have some fellow schemers, and people like Jeff Lederer and Martin Wind and Versace. all these musicians that I'm around. But for me, I tell everyone in this, especially when it comes to people in and out of the music, but let's say use for example students who want to perhaps do this as a career or have that kind of aspirations, which I by all means encourage. It all starts with relationships. Everything is relationships, and first and foremost, it's that you can play. But it's the second and foremost, it's relationships. So it's really not about a press kid and blah, 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 though those things support all those things. But to me, if you start relationships, then you're building trust. If you create trust, then you're creating your community. And then if you have that, then you've created a legacy. And after a while, you have created, just from relationships, that's the start. That shaking of hands, that being friendly to that person, that saying hello, that being kind to the person backstage, that doing this and that helps foster those relationships. So at every given point, you're kind of responsible for your actions,
Right.
Not only on stage, but off and in life in general. And like what Jeff was mentioning yesterday, that we there's not really a separation between what we do in life and when we're on the bandstand. I don't have to have this. I don't have to sit in a quiet room for 10 minutes and meditate or whatever. I mean, people have their own needs, but I'm the kind of person that, this is just what we do.
Right.
This is what we do. And, I can get off a plane and go right to it. I can wake up and have to go right to it. It's not like I need this or that, so I've kind of, it's kind of nice not to have, kind of stolen kind of paraphrased a motto of Carla Blaze in a way to hers is something like expect the worst, something the worst, demand the worst. I mean, she's being sarcastic.
Right.
But I mean, if you don't have I've changed that to sort of no expectations, no disappointment. So you go in and you just expect, you're just going to welcome things. So when we've done workshops this week, people will ask me, so what are you going to talk about these? I have no idea until I get there, until we start.
Right.
And then, I mean, often we have different tactics for sure. Jeff and I have done this a long time, or I have different ways in which I can go. But if I go in immediately, I'm not really serving the needs of that person at that point.
And when you watch that happen, and we were in a ton of different schools and different environments doing jazz. And of course, as you mentioned, there are a ton of different approaches and curriculums, and whether you're talking to instrumentalists or general audiences. When you come in with that approach, where you just a lot of times you'll maybe play up front, or you'll just start with something and let it go from there. I've seen, especially with young people, when they see that, it's almost like you watch their whole perspective on jazz change kind of in that moment, because maybe in their young journey they're learning very tactical strategies on jazz. Here's your blues scale. Here's the things, through their band program, which is essential. That's how you start and build the foundation. But when they see that happen in a jazz context, you see this expression on their face of oh, these are all the opportunities that I have with the music beyond just the little strategies. And yesterday, when you were doing some of the exercises with kids at Bexley, where you were asking the kids to represent different parts of the drum set, even non-drum set players.
Yes.
And then Jeff was doing something where he was playing with a young saxophonist and saying there are 3 ways to communicate musically, where you're agreeable, disagreeable, or you're ignoring what's happening around you.
Yeah.
And so dive into that, and you see kids, young people start to go, oh man, I didn't realize this was possible through this music yet. So that's one thing I've seen when you take that approach, is that they learn that there's so much more beyond the tactical with the jazz process.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I agree. And Zach, it all depends on the setting. We have ways. Right. I mean, if we were to see these young folks again today and then tomorrow, we might dive into more specific things. But I feel like if you start with real specific this or that, then they start to go, they want us. My goal as a teaching artist in these situations is to help them sound better immediately. Right. When I do summer workshops where I lead an ensemble, for example, which is one of my favorite things to do in the world, I mean, sometimes I feel like I enjoy the teaching as much as I do the playing, if not more. I mean, Stefan Harris, my good friend, who's a master educator,
right.
We talk about this. Wow, I think we get just as much satisfaction hearing these young people really go. But my goal is to have them learn to play together. They can learn all this other stuff all year, but if you can teach them how to share, how to be in a band, that's what we can do, because that's what we do.
Right.
We know how to be in a band and what it's like to experience that, and ways to do that, and ways to welcome it from all the different spots. So it's really challenging. Hopefully, what I kind of charge them to do is to take that back home. A great teaching artist. Again, everybody has their own ways. He's whacked, and we love him to death. It was Andrew D'Angelo. We love teaching with Andrew. Great teacher with kids. Really great knowledge of the history, and say just crazy stuff like mention some way some guy in the Stan Kenton band played trombone. We're like, who's that? He doesn't want to let on, that he knows all what he did. Can't remember the guy's name, but he referenced one time. But he'll say to him, okay, now listen. Now, when we get up there tonight, don't go back to the way where you're just sitting there.
Yeah.
Use this. Or when we leave, don't go back to the playing jazz like it's just, keep this enthusiasm up.
Right.
And I think that's something, too, that if we kind of liberate. But believe me, we have an easy job, an easier job than the person that has to see them every day.
Like
and they're the true heroes of this music. Dave Lehman talked about this many years ago at a dinner where he received an award. He said, listen, we're brought in as special team coaches. We come in, bam, but the real heroes are these people that start them out on instruments. Have to give them the fingerings. Have to have them. My wife was a high school orchestra director, and the things she was a hero to me. Of music, and the things what she did to welcome them into different situations. Stuff. She was very imaginative with all that. those are the real heroes. So I'm trying to be there to help them out as much as possible too, and support them and be there for them. I always say, you can get a hold of me through whatever organization that just brought me, or I'll give them my information. And I really do keep in touch with those people. And I meet a lot of really great, especially I'm really intrigued by what really great high school and middle school band directors accomplish.
Yeah. Yep.
The college thing, still, you're getting them. You're kind of a finishing school at that point. It's a little easier. Right? You're still dealing with their you're still dealing with their human everyday issues, which I have to deal with now as a college teacher.
Sure.
But to a certain extent, but they still get. But those heroes, the middle school people especially.
Yeah.
Man, I'd like to just gather them all and just have a big dinner for them and thank them. Like it just really, because they truly are great heroes for the arts.
I want to talk about for a second some of the early days of Matt Wilson, the musician and the drummer. Certainly, obviously, you had to go through your own process of figuring out not only the craftsmanship of playing the drums, but then how to express yourself. What were some early musical influences or family influences? What were some of the early elements that you went through growing up that inspired you to play jazz and also were key in building the foundation? Teachers, mentors, albums. What's sort of the DNA of that beginning period for Matt Wilson?
It's actually very traceable. I mean, it's very, very traceable. I've been very blessed to have, excuse me, I've been very blessed not to have someone that was ever negative, that said, oh, don't, I've had a few people along the way that gave me tough love, granted, but I never had from direct people that were around me constantly, my parents were great. The weird matter of fact, in the years later, they've been gone for quite a while now, but the years later, the weirder the music got, or the more that it was, the more they were into it because they could feel it being real.
And they probably felt their son more coming through.
Yeah, they did, and they loved it. They loved.
That's
They liked the writing. Matter of fact, my dad was up at the cafe one time in town and ran into somebody. And the guy said, "Heard some Matt's music on the radio today. They're talking about it on the NPR station or something." Dad goes, "Yeah, he's got this new record out," and he goes, "It was pretty weird." And Dad said, "Well, that's what he hears. That's what he likes to do. That's what he's into."
I can see that dialogue.
Yeah,
it's pretty weird.
So, and my mom was incredible in that regard. She was incredibly creative, and also gave us a high level of ideals to go for.
Yeah.
If we had a project, we didn't do it. My mom pushed us not to do it kind of half.
Yeah.
Nothing was ever half. It was like, if you're going to do the poetry notebook, let's make a nice poetry notebook. If you're going to make this poster, let's do it, in an imaginative way. Maybe not most artistic way, though my mom was pretty artistic, but for me, it was just getting a different angle.
Yeah.
I saw stuff on television. So, I saw Buddy on the Lucy show.
Right.
You can see the episode on YouTube, actually, and it's great. And he, Lucy grabs his bag. She looks like her purse. It has his symbols in it, the whole. But it was really great. So that's when and we could see people on TV playing the drums. Right? Look at the back of record covers and see the cat playing the drums. Sparkle drums just sort of really drew me in. They still do.
It was a big thing in those days.
Yeah, I see a set of sparkle drums. Yeah. It's like, man, Yeah. So I saw Buddy on there, and then my buddy that I was telling about last night or a couple of days ago, whatever, where I saw Clark Terry, Dizzy, Count Bass, and Oscar Peterson within 1 week, and then he had a bunch of records. So it was, and I did too. So we'd get together. It was so hot in the summer, we'd get together, and I remember the day that we put on this record called Rich versus Roach. His parents had it in a record club. I can play it for you. Actually, I have it. And they play Sing, Sing, Sing. And my life changed when it went to Max's solo, Mr. Roach's solo, where he plays over the changes with the bass playing, walking, which I love.
Yeah.
So you can trace that back to that day. I love having accompaniment.
Yep.
He goes ba-doom, doom, 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 ba-ba-doom, doom, 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 ba-doom, ba. Where Buddy plays, obviously plays great.
Yeah.
It's funny because I taught a class one day with Julian Priester and at the Cornish School when I was doing a residency there, and he's on that record. He's in Max's band at that point.
Oh, man.
I taught with Jimmy Cobb, the great Mr. Jimmy Cobb, at Stanford Jazz Workshop. He was at that date. Buddy invited him to come to the date, and Max, he was there.
Wow.
He was there. So Gigi Grice did the arrangements for that. So from there, my brother played saxophone, so we would go to town, buy early music. That's where I got my first set of drumsticks. I actually did some kind of got connected, sat down and played a drum set first through a musical at the church when I was a kid. And it seemed like it came pretty natural. I don't remember it really being a struggle to be able to do this. I watched this guy a lot, and I would just imitate him. And I had the bucket, the whole typical thing. But I bought these Ludwig 9As or something like that with red, and I still have the original snare drum I bought from a guy.
Wow.
Steve Jackson was his name. I bought a snare drum and stand, a little cymbal. I still have him, and orange sparkle.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to read or anything, so we would my brother and I would improvise. We'd buy sheet music every week, and then come home on Saturday nights and play the songs. I mean, my brother's in the theater. My brother teaches technical theater at St. Louis University. Very imaginative, very creative, and so that's what we did.
Yeah.
I mean, we watched Monty Python, and then we played these tunes. Maybe that was a little later, but when I was younger, he was in 8th grade. I was we would really do that. And then I started to get records, more and more records. And my brother got me a big positive. Another highlight was this 3-record set called The Drums on ABC Impulse. They did one on the bass, they did one on the saxophone.
Yeah.
Basically what they did was they drew from the Impulse catalog or other stuff. Michael Cox and Ed Michelle put these things together, both now who I know. And back in the day. So they had, on this recording, was it Baby Dodd Spooky Drums all the way through Barry Allschul with Braxton or with Chick.
Right.
So all that music in between. So there was Buddy and Danny Richmond and Chico Hamilton and Sonny Murray with Albert Eiler and Beaver Harris with Archie Shepp and Louis Bellson playing Cherokee and Buddy playing Brainwashed and Philly Joe playing and Elvin playing Shiny Stockings from all those records. So I listened to this a lot. So I just thought I didn't have any sort of limitation on what my concept of what I thought a jazz drummer was. The Eiler music at first kind of scared me, but then I really got into it.
Right.
And I liked the no time feeling. So I thought, wow, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I didn't have this prejudice or lack because I was ignorant, which I try to maintain ignorance to this day.
Yeah, right.
So I don't have that. But I talk about this all the time. So I didn't know that I had to check into a 5-year period and only play that music.
But you came up, and that's such a beautiful thing to come up that long with no sort of musical prejudice or feeling of what the right way of playing is versus the wrong. But when did it transition to a point where you felt like, maybe it was the first gig that you had with someone like this, where you felt like, I'm going to pursue the drums, but I'm also going to play with my heroes. Like one of these days, I'm going to start to interface and be in the same family as them. Was there a gig? Was there a lesson or an encounter with one of your heroes that made you go, it's actually possible for me to join these ranks and play with these people?
I think it started when I got to play that first gig or wedding gig with my high school band director's dance band when I was in 8th grade.
Yeah.
That was success to me.
Yeah.
And I liked the community. I liked to hang. I liked talking to the musicians at the break.
Yeah.
They were, some of them were really sweet. Some of them were kind of weird.
Right.
Some of them were bitter. Some of them were happy. And then it just kept, that community just kept expanding. So all along, when I got to Wichita to play with all these different people.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to, maybe it was not by accident. Maybe it was just because I didn't know, but I never was like, oh, I want to get out of this town. I want to go here and I didn't have one person to pursue per se. Though, when I heard Dewey the first time in January of 1988, I was like, man, I'd really like to do that someday.
Yeah.
And I got to for 12 years. Or when I saw Buster Williams with Sphere, and I thought, wow, I'd really love to play with him someday. And I did. I have a lot.
Yeah.
Or when I used to play along with Steps Ahead records with Eddie Gomez and think, wow, I hope I get to do this someday. And I have, or to, see and watch Herbie Hancock play live and then say, wow, I'd like to do that someday. And I've had that, at least one night to get to do that, which I'll cherish forever. Maybe I'll get to do it again. I don't know. But to have that gift like that. So there was that. But I had a really good teacher, too. I had a private teacher that I got later. My high school band teacher was really great, too, because he really taught us music. It wasn't a competitive thing. And when somebody asked me the other day, we didn't have the jazz band in the school because of budget cuts. Though he did it on the outside and we did it on our own. But it was limited. So maybe that was good because, I wasn't given by one person what this music was. I had to find it out from a few different people. And he really he would actually go with us to those concerts when we go to the Quad Cities and see stuff.
Yeah.
But then I found a great private teacher named John Larson, whose son is Adam Larson, a really fine saxophone player in New York. And that was in one of those moments because it came from a real musical source. And I'd study everything with him, Mallet's theory, timpani, everything. I did all my college prep with this guy, and he's fantastic. I still keep in touch. I mean, to me, a teacher is always a teacher.
Yeah,
you know, once they're a teacher, they're always your teacher.
Right.
You even if you go in career-wise or whatever beyond, you're not there. But you're not there without those guys,
right?
You know, so he is great. And we man, when I remember the day I learned the bossa nova beat, he played bass with me because he could play some electric bass. Right. So instead of me learning it from a book, which I never really worked out of a book with him, maybe a couple of books in a way, but it was all his own writing of stuff. And I learned that too. Like, it wasn't going to come from one source. So the day that we learned the bossa, he played bass. So I was hearing doom, 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 doom. So when I got to play, and I got to improvise with that sound too.
And also feel it in the room with you and respond musically to another person.
Yeah, so I was hooked. And I came up in a different way. Like, for example, through John and just through whatever, I'm not saying it's better or worse. It's just a different way. I didn't come up in the rudimental way. I don't really know the rudiments, the 26. I mean, I know rolls and flams and whatever, but I don't know all that stuff by name. Again, it's just a different journey.
Sure.
It's not. I'm not saying it's better, and I don't think anybody should say it's worse. It's just that's the way I came up. So it came up a lot of way, and we worked a lot on the cymbal. Ironically, playing the cymbal and coming up with a way. He was very imaginative with ways of introducing. Comping and et cetera, singing them, playing them, et cetera. We sang them, we played them. I mean, you look back, it's great. So then I would go to, my parents would take me to every workshop in the area possible. So I'd see Ed Shaughnessy, I saw Louis Belson a lot, who was extremely kind to me. And I learned a lot about being a human being from seeing someone like that who's just such a great artist and a giving guy. I saw Buddy play. You know, I spoke to him even when I was a kid. Kind of got yelled at him once, but then he was super nice. He didn't want to sign the autograph then. And I was like, but, and he goes, no, I said I'm not going to sign the autograph now. I was like, okay. And then when I went to the bus, he was fine.
Yeah,
but,
right.
You know, you learn, but you got to know how to, you got to learn that.
Yep.
How to respect. And the last time I ever saw him, we had a really nice, short, but kind of nice conversation. I don't think he knew I was a drummer or anything, but I brought a record called Buddy Rich Sings. I brought it on the bus. And he looks at me and goes, see this record cover, kid? I was like, yeah. He goes, should have never happened. And he laughed and he smiled. But then I would go, I saw the Basie Band. I saw these bands, and I thought, wow, that's something I'd really like to do.
Yeah.
So then when I went to college, I met where I went to college. I had offers to go schools, kind of full rides and everything like that, to go to some schools. And then I went to this percussion symposium sponsored by the Ludwig Drum Company in Madison, Wisconsin, summer of 80. Let's see, summer of 80. Summer of 81. It would have been. Alan Dawson was there. Carmine Appice, Al Payson.
Yeah.
Lee Howard Stevens. Like Dave Samuels, Dave Friedman. Heavy duty.
Right.
Cats.
Right.
All Bobby Christian. Oh man, just to get to experience Bobby Christian. And we'll talk about a whirlwind of just love and joy of sound.
Yeah.
But there was this group there, Wichita State Percussion Ensemble, did this opening night concert or second night concert. I was like, pardon my language, but what the hell's going on here? This was great. It was just a whirlwind of just virtuosity, yet creative and funny, and it didn't stop. It was just, and this guy came out, he was like the ringmaster. I was like, man, what's this cat all about?
Right.
Loved him. So we had a class the next day. It was like 11 o'clock in a classroom. And I went in thinking, what's this guy all about? And I went and I learned more, I think, in that hour of just practical, funny things, or, just things to do and stories. And, man, I'm really interested in going to school there. So I pursued it. I took a train down to Newton, Kansas. I had to ride. The train got in from Galesburg to Newton at 3 a.m. I had to wait for 2 hours for the train station to close. Ride with the guy that owns the station. We called. We figured this all out. I told my daughter this. I rode with him down to Wichita to the bus station. Now, nothing welcomes you to a new town you've never been to, even another state, another area of the country for me. I'd never been outside of Illinois, Iowa, Wisconsin, really.
Wow.
Went down there. Man. The bus station is my introduction to Wichita. Here I am, this high school kid.
And did they know you were coming?
No, Dr.
everything
Combs
was set
came.
up.
Dr.
Yeah.
Combs, who I'm referring to, came and got me like
Okay.
at 7 or something
Got
like
it.
that. Picked me up, brought me to his house. Then I did the auditions.
Gotcha.
I stayed at this real. Oh man, I still drive by this little motel I found, and it's unbelievable that I know cell phone. Nothing. Called Collect Home, and but I auditioned there, and then I got in obviously, and I got a nice scholarship, and I went to school there, and I started, and it was a life changer for me. Not only about I didn't really learn how, and I'm going to see him Monday night. He'll be the first to admit I didn't really learn to play the drums with him, but I learned how to be a musician. I learned how to be a spirit in the music. I learned how to be an advocate. I learned how to be an impresario. I like that word a little bit better than entrepreneur. It's kind of overused for me. He was a real impresario. Really great communication skills like yourself. Had a TV show. He's a character.
And you run into so many people that went to Wichita State that had the same sentiment. I mean, I was a TA at Indiana with this amazing musician, Brian Mueller, who's wonderful. He'll do Keith Jarrett transcriptions on the marimba, just amazing stuff. And it's the same, I hear that same exact thing, that J.C. Combs welcomed so much creativity and family through percussion. And was just such a stand-up guy in the industry.
Oh man, and he still is. He's kind of back into some things. He's been retired for 10 years, but now from some encouragement, especially from me, I'm kind of pushing because it's too much imagination to waste. He's maybe the most creative person that I know of on the planet. We hung out with him at the quartet, and we were having drinks and talking. And he was I got him going about all these projects, the pinball machine, this and that, pinball piece, the wrestling piece, all this crazy stuff he's done. And we went back to the room, and Chris Lightcap, who doesn't hand out, he said, that man is a genius. And still, every time you bring his name up to anybody in my world or around you, you say J.C. Combs to Peter Erskine, you see J.C. Combs to any of these cats, they know not only a lot, but just how to handle yourself, how to dress, how to be professional. And not super business, but I remember the first day he came in. This was the fall of 1982, so that's quite a few years ago. And he had the statistics about how many people were graduating from the spring of 82 with percussion degrees, and how many orchestra jobs there were, and what the percent. This was in 82 when there was more work, even more than there is now. And I was like, damn. So basically what his thing was, you got to find what you can do and do it really well. You can't do everything, but you got to find something that you can do to make yourself, valuable. That's what I say to my students. How are you going to make yourself valuable?
Yeah.
And he never talked about business per se, but I learned a lot from him. So that was, and I talked to him at least once a month, if not twice. I mean, super close. They came to Felice's funeral. I mean, the school did. The dean came, it's like Wichita State is very important.
Yeah.
So but what was wild is that we pushed each other, man.
Yeah.
We were friends, deep friends. My deepest friends who came from that era, really, as far as percussion, especially. But man, it was, my buddy Randy Burgard, a great drummer in Vegas. I mean, we still talk about, man, if he was practicing, I was practicing.
Right.
If I was practicing, he was practicing. We'd stop and talk, to go get a drink and talk about what we're practicing. Go get a Dr. Pepper at the student center, come back, practice some more. And then we would push each other. What kind of crazy project you going to come up with? He really, Combs was a great teacher. He didn't have to do anything.
Well, and it seems like he married the ambition and the work element of being in music school with the creativity. The creativity never had to leave the room for you to go and do the work part. And which sometimes you see some young students that are so overwhelmed by the logging of the practice hours and that as sort of a technical exercise, that the creativity kind of it's like you have to put that in your locker and then get your sticks out and go in and work on the ride cymbal. It's like the two don't have to be mutually exclusive.
No, not at all. And the other thing is that he really welcomed us. Matter of fact, not only welcomed it, seriously encouraged us to get out of the walls of that joint.
Wow. Yeah.
So I played in town. I was working within a month when I got to town.
Wow.
Every kind of gig I could take. I was used to working. So I ended up getting with this guy, New Graber, and man, I was working all the time. It was great. And eventually, man, I mean, money-wise, percentage of what I made then to what I had to pay in life, I was probably the best of my, maybe not, but close, pretty good living for, college student or post when I was there after the year I got out. But through that, I met all these great musicians that lived in town.
Yeah.
I met great country people. I met great rhythm and blues, rockabilly cats that really knew how to play. I learned all about all this other kind of music other than just there. Then during the summer, we'd go different places. So we had one guy, man, that studied with Alan Abel during the summers,
Yep.
and was a finalist in the Met Opera Orchestra auditions at like 19 or 20 years old. We had guys went to Cuba. I did this thing with Soph. Some guys hung out with Andy Narell out west and worked on the pan thing.
Yep.
Everybody kind of found stuff that and we would come back and we'd share that information. So he would have us do master classes a lot too. So I learned how to communicate. I remember that first one. I really remember working hard on what I was going to present because I was nervous. It's my peers, and they're like, okay. But it was great. It was a lot of love, but we had to present. So he wasn't the almighty there. Matter of fact, not at all.
Right.
Which is a sign of a really great teacher.
Yeah, we talked about that the other day. That a teacher that doesn't come in and immediately establish that difference in stature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want anybody to be Matt Wilson. You got to be who you are, and that's what he encouraged.
Right.
I want to give people skills and craft, and so. And then Soph was great because Soph was kind of I got an NEA jazz apprenticeship grant in the summer of 1984, and I stayed with that. So that was 1984. I was 19 years old. I was almost 20. Was another seminal period because I studied with Ed, and that summer I saw Elvin Jones, Philly Joe Jones, actually in the same night, Billy Higgins, Airto, Terry Lynn Carrington. Peter Donald. I would just go out.
And you went down to Texas for this?
No. This was in Boston. I was living in Boston. He was still living near New Haven.
Okay, this is before he was done.
Yeah. So I would drive down from Boston to New Haven, North Haven, and take the lessons, and go back to Boston where I had a place to practice. And I would practice all day. It was like very disciplined practicing.
That's awesome.
Very, very disciplined practicing because that's all I had to do. So it was a really great thing to do. And then I'd go see the music. Alan Dawson. I saw Alan. I mean, deep. So I brought that back to Wichita. And then really from that point on, I had a pretty good practice ethic. I think about productive practicing. But I think then is where I really learned to journal, and my friend would do that too. So we really would journal what we were working on, and we know maybe it's probably the most disciplined couple of years of my life. Sure. Probably from 84 around that period, maybe even prior to that, to 85 or something like that. Really, and then through that too, when the people would come to the Wichita Jazz Festival, we were encouraged to go talk to these people. Take them. We took Peter Erskine to lunch. He still talks about it. Yeah. Remember, he goes, "Man, you took me to Connie's or Bill Goodwin or Buster Williams. Remembers events there? But I remember that." Mel Lewis, man, I met Mel there. He was super nice. My buddy and I stayed, just like we're talking here, we stayed with him until he had to leave to go to the airport. Sunday night after the Jazz Festival, he had a Walkman with speakers. It was the first time I've ever seen that. Yeah. And he had this little speaker, and we listened to it. He goes, man, and he had brushes and sticks, and he was talking about all kinds of stuff, and he gave us the greatest words of advice. He said, fellas, I never have a bad night. And we're like, oh, really? He goes, I just have better nights than others.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So, all this stuff, maybe we saw Art Blake. Maybe it was better to be in a place where it wasn't so available that when we got it, we really had to pay attention.
Right.
I think sometimes in New York and places, well, if it's all there, but you got to go see it.
Right. Yeah, you still have to go and commit yourself to whatever it is.
So maybe it's good to kind of, especially young people, not enough stuff going on. Maybe it's great to go someplace where there's a little bit of transparency in their life and they can really work on stuff and get to play a lot, still get challenged, but still play a lot. And then when they go to those places, immerse themselves in it, maybe bring that energy back rather than be overwhelmed by that energy. Unless they're extremely mature or extremely really ready for what they want to do. I'm kind of glad I didn't move to New York until I was 27,
Yeah. Yep. I want to talk a little bit about your most recent projects. So you just put out a record in the last year and a half, 2 years? Big Happy Family?
No, it was just less than a year, yeah.
Oh, man.
May of 16.
And it's a beautiful project.
Thank you.
So many of your friends and longtime colleagues, and really, from talking to you and listening, seems like the record itself came about through the passing of your wife.
Yeah.
Which in and of itself obviously is a tragic and heartbreaking thing, but the amazing thing about it, I happen to know sort of what was going on through Pete Mills here in Columbus, and have an idea of what was going on in your life through that event. That when you checked out the record, it was nothing but beautiful and happy. It was truly a big, happy family.
Yeah.
I think that I remember listening to that going, what a gift that you can give to this moment, you know.
Yeah, I think
by
so too.
putting
Thank
together
you.
something really beautiful like that. And so I'd like your thoughts on that as a project, but also tying that to this concept, and you've talked about it since you've been here. You'll come to a place, whether it be the Veil Festival or the Veil Series or these other places you travel, and you'll work with both the guests and the local musicians, and you have a tendency to be the instigator, the guy that puts everybody together, and not only, you know, has fun, but you create real performances like that, and this record is a good example of that. So talk about the record, and also just this way that you have of bringing people together in this way and creating the product, the end result.
Well, thank you. Wow. First, the record briefly, but the record for me was, because it took me a while to even get. I was like, I was playing on records. I was a side person on records, but band leading, I did some band. I was bleeding still and everything, but it was just, it wasn't the same. One part of it was nobody to come home to and talk to about the gig.
Right.
It was really weird. Even though her and I didn't talk about it sometimes that much because we did this for so many years. But Felicia was really great. Like, how was it? How was this? Or she was, she wasn't too involved. Though what was great, she played with us a lot in the last few years.
Right. She was a musician.
Yeah, she was a great violinist, and she was really wanting to play improvise. So she was with the quartet with strings, and her first gig back after having the transplant was at the Litchfield Jazz Festival, which is the photograph inside the record.
Yeah.
So getting that together was cool, and I wanted to celebrate that and her and just all those songs that she liked, and then kind of revisit those and bring everybody back together. Yeah. That even if they're still part of the family.
Sure.
Joel played with us last weekend in Chile. And plus just those combinations. And I'm also very intrigued by combinations of people. And I don't look at labels, and I don't I've had some really great influences as far as that. Like, for example, my great friend Ted Nash. Through Ted is how I've met a lot of really great people that I would have never met because he has the know-how and the imagination to go, wow, I'm going to put these combination of people together.
Right.
So through him, man, I became really great friends with Winton, through Marcus Printup, Wycliffe Gordon.
Yep.
A range of people, and I think we got to stop looking at what we think people do.
Yeah.
Oh, they only do this.
Yeah,
well,
you're that guy.
You're that guy.
Yeah.
Man, like this last summer I was talking about the thing of Veil. John Clayton is one of the most creative. Man, we played this set. It was wild. It was Jeff Hamilton and I and Clayton and Gary Versace and 3 trumpets. Byron was one of them.
Yep.
And Benny Benack and Terrell Stafford. So, and Joel sat in, and Jim White was there, and I had him come up and play on a tune, and we did a whole thing. We've also done 2 drummer things and 2 bass things. We did that one time at Vail. That was Martin and I, and Jeff and John, and Terrell and James Morrison and Bill Cunliffe. So, which is pushing it for these people at Vail. But I don't buy that because they loved it because it was different and it was real.
Yeah, real and honest.
It was honest. That's what John stresses is honesty and clarity in music. And and so John Clayton, I should say, and. So I don't look at, I never have and I never will. Ken Popal, sometimes the people that we think are, quote, if we're going to use terms, are straight ahead, are the freest people I've ever met.
Right.
Sometimes the people that are supposed free people are the most restrictive, most controlling people I've ever played with. Because if to me, freedom means that you will welcome whatever's happening. That's freedom.
It's like that Lovano quote I think that you or Jeff were mentioning yesterday.
I don't play free jazz.
I play jazz
free. Yeah. Joe Lovano, baby.
How amazing is that?
And he does. He embraces. So he's another one for me. Puts together great combinations of people. So I'm intrigued by repertoire and combinations of people. People came to the Village Vanguard when my first week at the Village Vanguard ever was with Buster Williams Band. People came down to wonder, Matt Wilson and Buster Williams.
Yeah.
But we love each other. I absolutely adore him. If I don't want to say anybody's my favorite, but he's pretty close. Loved it. When it feels great and you find those compatible spirits, There's something about that generation of musician too that I'm really into. The era where they established something, but they had to create strong. They created strong music during the 70s and 80s, which is neglected.
Right.
You know, him, Buster McBee, you know, Cecil McBee, Dewey, you know, Rufus Reed. I mean, these cats that, man, some great music went down. And we look at the guys prior, and we look at the post, you know, the post Young Lion era, Winston and Branford, great cats. I'm not putting anybody down, but we kind of maybe neglect a little bit.
Yeah.
These guys, Stanley Cowell, all these guys in the middle that were doing some amazing stuff.
Yep.
Beyond the avant-garde, I'm just saying people that were still playing, you know, jazz, the Heaths, I mean, everybody that. So I have a real affinity for those folks. They tip. They came up knowing how to tip and swing, but they also have this expansive side.
Yeah.
And they want it to be imaginative and creative and open.
And again, the two are not mutually exclusive.
No.
These are not siloed things. They can swing and be free at the same time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when people start to label and put the worst, like things, this is the two things. One is this is the way we've always done it. That phrase and style, or what's their style? What's your style, or what kind is? I don't know what kind it is. I always just say fun, you know. And then fun doesn't mean goofy ball, but it can. But fun means that it's real.
Yeah.
You know. I mean, I don't know how to. I mean, like I said. Toots Thielman is maybe perhaps one of the freest people I've ever had the opportunity to play with, or Hank Jones, man. I mean, I played with Hank Jones, and he didn't come in with a list of stuff the way we were supposed to play. He wanted to play with Martin and I.
Right.
Wind. He played with us. We played together. It wasn't like, oh, you got to go in when you do this with him. You got to do this. I want this. I want this. He had no rules.
Right.
James Moody was the same way. Beautiful. James Moody played with us, with Bill Mason. It was a quartet. It wasn't us playing for James Moody. And he came in with that kind of attitude. He wanted a new adventure, and we found it, and it was really fun. I'll never forget it. One night, if it would have been 30 nights or one night. Still, I got that one night or two, maybe it was two, and it was beautiful.
Yeah.
So, do we many nights? You know. Maybe, too, it came from people. When I moved to Boston, I had a great chance to become part of an era, too. And I think that people like what we were cultivating in Boston, not harboring, cultivating in Boston with the Either Orchestra was, wow, what's going to be the alternative if you can't get in one of these bands? You know, the Messengers or Betty Carter's band or whatever. Not that we were thinking this way, but somebody like Russ Gershon put this band together, the Either Orchestra, and I think celebrating, 35 years, I think. No, this year it'll be... Yeah, this year will be, I don't know how many years now, but 30-something. And from that, people started to create their own projects, and it was more of like, so we were getting both. We were able to know that, wow, we can apprentice, which I'm still grateful that I've gotten to do, and I still continue to apprentice, but we'll lead our own projects and have that. Yeah. So, you know, I just got a phone call from Charlie Coley's this morning about a reunion we're going to do with that band coming up, and I still talk with Russ a lot. And from that band came Medeski and Medeski Martin would have started without the bravery of that band going on the road.
Right.
You know, and we went out and gave it to the people. There were not that many people playing in smaller places in the 80s like that.
Yeah.
You know, it was either major concerts or not much.
Yeah.
And that kind of band like that would come through, especially that large. It kind of created something new. Yeah. And through, again, Miguel Zenon, myself, John Carlson, Andrew D'Angelo, Jeremy Udine, all these great musicians. The list goes on and on. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to leave anybody out, but great musicians that emerged from that band. So it's we were part of a pretty seminal project, you know, that I'm very proud of being, having been a part of.
Right. Right. Well, everything that you've put out in this collaborative way, everything I've heard about through friends and colleagues has been, if not beyond everything else, beautiful and loving and open and swinging and free. And we can't wait to hear your concerts with the quartet tonight at Notes.
Oh, thank you.
Can't wait to hear the record. You have a record coming out sometime soon, right?
It'll be in the early fall called Honey and Salt, and it's music that I've written inspired by the poetry of Carl Sandburg.
Yeah, and I've gotten the amazing fortune to hear some little snippets of excerpts of some of those poems being recited.
Yeah,
which is pretty hip stuff, man.
Yeah,
really
thank you. I can't wait for you to. Maybe I'll play a little bit this afternoon for you of some of the stuff that I have. But
that'd be great.
I appreciate it. Jeff posted this morning. I think it's really true. You know, we're in this new era now of making America great again and whatever. okay, I'll subscribe to it. But people like this organization is making it, making America great again. It's people that are going to do it.
Yeah.
And we've been inspired to do that, and we're going to continue to be inspired to do it. I'm not going to let anything get in the way of that. We have to have compassion. We have to have all that. But it takes work, and we have to get out there. But whatever we can do to give anybody the opportunity to have this music sound in them, I think we should. Not everybody's going to like it. Nobody should. Not everybody should like it, right? But if we give people the opportunity to have an experience, and not only sonically hear it and experience, but to actually get to know the performers. I think once people get to know the performers, they're going to like it.
Right.
They're going to find out that these are regular people like everybody else. And the people that I'm around are that kind of people too. And I surround myself with those people. I want those kind of people around me that are not afraid to talk to these people over here about the music. Be cordial, be friendly, be gracious that they're there.
Yeah.
That's one of my only requirements as a band leader is that you be gracious.
Right.
My people that play with me, and they are, and I think that's very, very important, because in the end, when I was a kid, in closing, I saw Count Basie on 60 Minutes. I saw Count Basie live. I actually spoke with Count Basie.
Wow.
And I saw him on 60 Minutes, and Mike Wallace, I think it was Mike Wallace or Morty Safer, one of the two was on the road with them, on the bus. You hear the bus, and he goes, Mr. Basie, you've done all this. You've helped create a genre of American swing. You've done all this. What is it that you want to be known for? And he stops and pauses, Mr. Basie, and he goes, oh, that Count Basie was a really nice guy. And I saw that, and I thought, he could have said this or that.
Right.
Most artists have to have this.
Yeah.
But man, he just said, that he was a really nice. That's what he did.
That.
He did. That's what he did. Somebody can fix a car. Somebody can grow a great crop of grapes and make great wine. Somebody can paint. Somebody can teach your children well. He played the piano.
Yep.
He put bands together. That's what he did.
Yeah.
So. That's what we do.
Yep, and I think that's a beautiful message to leave this with. I encourage everyone that's listening here to visit Matt's website, mattwilsonjazz.com.
Yes,
right?
please. Thank you.
Check out the records, YouTube Matt, and see the wonderful things that he's doing. And we look forward to the next time, obviously, to get you into Columbus. And thank you so much for your energy and talent since you've been here.
Thank you, Zach. I appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Matt.
Love you guys. Thank you. Bye.
We leave you with a performance by Matt Wilson and saxophonist Jeff Lederer from their Offstage at the Jazz Academy event held here in Columbus. The tune is entitled Bubbles, based on the poem of the same title by author and poet Carl Sandburg.
You know, it was worth being a bubble just to have held that ringing bow for 30 seconds.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of The Jazz Scene. We want to hear your feedback. Be sure to subscribe to The Jazz Scene on iTunes and give us your rating and comments. A big thanks to our music technology intern and recording engineer, Nick Fields. The theme music is by Columbus saxophonist Michael Cox, and The Jazz Scene is made possible by corporate, foundation, and individual contributors to the Jazz Arts Group. I'm Zach Compston, and we hope you join us again for another episode of The Jazz Scene.